It is 3 p.m. Welcome. What a great crowd. It's so good to see each of you here today. We're excited to have public input and looking forward to what you have to say today. We want to thank the Ivy Tech facility and their chancellor here for opening their facilities to us. We're grateful for this video. I'm Representative Tim Wesco from Elk Park, St. Joseph counties, and I am chairing the meeting today. I would like to ask at this time if our members could introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Rick, from District 18, which is Contact County and Fallback.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fadi Fakula. I have the privilege and the honor of serving in Senate District 30, which covers the north side of Kinzie and the south side of Hamilton County.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Stacey Donato. I'm State Senator for District 18. That is past mine in Fulton County completion and portions of Carroll, Pasco, and Marshall.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Cook from Bedford, Indiana. I serve Senate District 44, which includes all the parts of Lawrence, Monroe, Jackson, Brown, and Bethlehem counties.
I'm Ed Solid, State Representative District 4, representing Finance County in the state of Indiana, Florida.
Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Cherish Pryor, representing the northwest side of Indianapolis. Thank you all for coming.
My name is Senator John Cray. I represent District 24, which is most of Hendricks and most of Putnam County, just west of Indianapolis.
Good afternoon. So glad to see a big turnout here today. I'm Ethan Mann, State Representative from District 23, which is portions of Miami, Cass, and Fulton counties.
We also have a few other legislators that are present in the room that are not a part of the elections committee. Senator Mervan. Senator Mervan. Representative Pat Boyd. Excellent. It's good to have each of you here today. I'm going to just briefly do an overview of the redistricting process. It occurs every 10 years following the release of the decennial U.S. Census. The Indiana General Assembly is responsible for drawing the congressional districts and the Indiana House and Senate legislative districts. The redistricting data is usually released around March or April. Due to delays, the U.S. Census Bureau has indicated that the necessary data will not be released until August 12th. Representative Greg Sturwell is authoring the redistricting bills. They are currently listed as vehicle bills on the Indiana General Assembly website. Assuming the census data comes in as expected, the plan is for the General Assembly to reconvene in mid-September to debate and vote on the new districts. The legislation containing the new districts will follow the normal legislative process, which means there will be additional opportunities in both the House and Senate for public comment and input, as well as discussion amongst legislators. Members of the public also will be able to draw and submit their own maps by using an online portal with mapping software at Ivy Tech campuses statewide. Assuming the data comes as planned, the online portal is expected to be launched in late August. I just want to quickly go over a few brief rules and guidelines for our meeting here today. The purpose of this meeting is for Hoosiers across the state to provide input in the redistricting process. Members of the public are invited to speak generally to the principles of redistricting and specifically for their preferences for the new district lines, both for state legislative districts and the congressional districts. We have maps here of the current districting is for Hoosiers across the state to provide input in the redistricting process. Members of the public are invited to speak generally to the principles of redistricting and specifically for their preferences for the new district lines, both for state legislative districts and the congressional districts. We have maps here of the current districts as well as the districts from the previous decade. Comments not about redistricting specifically will be ruled out of order. For recognition to speak, you must complete a written testimony request form and submit it to our legislative services attorney prior to or immediately following the meeting. I'll give it another 15 or 20 minutes for those who'd like to sign up. We have quite a few people signed up already to testify. Those are available right here. You just fill them out and get our attention, and we'll make sure we get those added to the list. Members of the public giving testimony are asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes or less. Last I counted, we had 20 people plus signed up. I anticipate we probably got closer to 30 now. So it's very important that we limit our comments in order to give everyone the opportunity to speak. The meeting will conclude at 2 hours. Questions from the committee members for clarification of the testimony of individuals speaking are in order. All other questions are not. Streaming of this meeting is hopefully available. IBTEX has had some technical difficulties, but they are seeking to get that streaming through a hotspot. It is available at ida.in.gov/redistricting. So we are excited to hear from each of you today. And at this time, I would like to start recognizing Representative Pat Boyle, who signed up to speak. And so let's please come to the microphone and address the members. Welcome. It's good to see you.
I think it's on.
Okay, I can't say myself.
Swallow what?
Swallow.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that full meeting. I appreciate it very much, and I know that the public is very interested because it affects their lives in many, many ways. What the public wants is to encourage competitive elections. Communities' interests should be kept together, and don't combine clashing communities of interest into one. To divide cities and counties into as few districts as possible, to create a transparent process to give the public real opportunities to participate. And districts should be drawn with the goal of splitting political subdivisions such as counties, cities, and towns into as few districts as possible. And particularly for congressional districts, communities of interest are also important. Congressional District 1, which is what most of us are from, is Lake Michigan shoreline, is community of interest. We don't want to split that if we can do it, if we can possibly do that. That would be Lake County, Porter County, and LaPorte County, and probably the counties just south of us. I appreciate your letting us give input today. Thank you very much.
Senator Eddie Melton.
Representative remarks. Just a few things. Taking Melton State Senate District 3, which is a very bill over Crown Point Lake Station in Chicago. Thank you to my colleagues for being here today. You mentioned it, Representative Westbrook, earlier in your presentation, that this is every 10-year scenario that we're faced with in the state of Indiana. It shapes everything from representation to federal funding, you know, right? So this will have a tremendous impact on every single Hoosier across the entire state. Every resident deserves to be involved in the entirety of this process as it unfolds. That's why I was extremely disappointed that we didn't have a hearing in one of the most populated counties in Lake County. important that we slow the process down. And here's why I think we slow the process down, because we don't have actual maps to show the public. And if we had actual maps to show the public to start that conversation, I think it'd be a little bit more transparent. And it would give folks the opportunity to share their thoughts. But what the purpose of this meeting is truly is. In closing, I would say, as a legislator that represents the northwest parts of the state of Indiana, I truly understand the impact that this is going to have, especially on the legislative process, as the one that represents constituents, and we have, especially those in the super minority, issues of having legislation being heard, legislation being passed, because of, let's call it what it is, the jury act. So this is not, respectful, and this is not any type of ranking, so this is be the process in a more fair, equitable way. And I think we can do that. So thank you.
Welcome, Representative Smith.
Mr. Chairman, let me begin by saying for the opportunity to share my thoughts and to represent the fine citizens of the city to have the honor of serving. I am going to reiterate some of the things that probably said. I'm really for a purpose. First of all, I'm not concerned because we have no maps. Because we have no maps, that we cannot have specific recommendations for what the plans are, because we don't know what the plans are. In order to have testimony or people making comments, in order to be coordinated with the maps, which are the issues that bring us here today. And then we've been informed that there's no consensus there, which we would use as a foundation of the structure for developing the maps. And so it's like putting the cart before the horse, and having these hearings, and we don't know what your actual plans are, so we can't speak to them. I'd like to also speak to a point that I think is most important. When we are elected, we're elected not to be the masters, but to be the servants. Yeah. And we have to keep that in mind. When we want to be doing what's best, regardless of what the party is, we ought to be doing what's best for all of the citizens of this fine state called Indiana. We should be doing what is the best for the food. And I look back at my first days in the legislature. During those times, in the first decade, when I first got there, it was a 50-50 split. And then we had the numbers, I don't know the exact number, but we had something like 48, 52, and then we had 49, 51, and we had 53, 47. I think we did our best job of legislating then when we were forced to work the cost out and to collaborate with each other. And I remember I always remember leaving the Democratic side and going there to talk here to do that and to be the black actor and to still with the other people that were on that side. People who thought like us, they were people who would be rational and who would look at the legislation and make a decision. We lost them. And I'm hoping that we keep that in mind, that we are here to serve not just the citizens of our district, but all the people. And that's why I respond to emails all over the state. That's why I return phone calls to people all over the state. Although I'm the voice for the 14th district and fine citizens of the district, I feel that I have a responsibility for the good of the whole state to do that. I'm hoping that once we get the maps drawn, that you'll give the public a chance to begin to respond to those maps. our testimony will be much more meaningful when we have something before that we can be specific about. Indiana Common Cause has been, to my knowledge, collecting proposed maps. I hope that you consider them as you draw the maps, the ones that you prefer. And my colleague on the other side, Senator Nelson, mentioned the German. I just want to address that, and I want to read, if you allow me, from an op-ed that was written by Tony Mason, who's the president and CEO of the International League. And then I'm going to not read the whole, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to read the whole, you're not going to read all of it. But I'm not going to read the whole op-ed, but I do want to deal with the section where he refers to Jeremy. And this is not put down to either party. It's just something that we know exists and we can use it in the past. Not party looking at this, but he says when redistricting is conducted properly, district lines are redrawn to reflect population changes and racial diversity. But he goes on to say that too often legislators use redistricting as a political tool to manipulate the outcomes of the election, no matter which party is in control. The act of manipulating district lines, the statute burdens voters' fundamental rights, including their First Amendment right to express political views and to participate in the political process. Racial gerrymandering in particular. Racial gerrymandering in particular is one tactic politicians use to dilute the voting power of communities of color. It typically occurs in one of two ways. The first method involves packing a community densely populated with voters of color to one small number of districts. The other method involves cracking those communities into small segments so they will not be significant. Racial gerrymandering tarnishes our nation's democratic promise of one person, one vote, and leaves non-white voters underrepresented. I know this has been the case. The last time the map was drawn, I was taken out totally out of my district, and I was given up another time and two other times to represent. So I'm not speaking for myself. The sky's will, I will be with you next time. It's not as good. I'm speaking for the person who will inherit this district. That we ought to do what is right and not what is politically advantageous to one party or the other. Let's do what's good. Thank you.
Brian Blazak, St. John Councilman. Blind to speak. I also want to point out that Senator Lonnie Randolph, I saw him talk in the room. Senator, yep, good to see you. And so is Representative saw her pop in. Lee Morris, the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I appreciate very much the opportunity to appear before you today. And I want to thank you for taking the time to do this public meeting, series of public meetings. There we go. It is extremely important, we believe, to have the opportunity for public input into this process. The Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission is a group that's been created by the Common Cause Indiana and a coalition of some 25 other not-for-profit organizations. It's a demonstration project to show how a group of citizens can be of assistance to the Indiana General Assembly in doing this important redistricting process. I'm a Republican member of the committee. There are 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 3 people who have never been a part of either political party. It has proven to be, I think, an extremely helpful tool. We've held public hearings in all 9 congressional districts, had over 1,000 people now participate in those public meetings and giving us input into this process. We've learned a lot about how they're viewing the problems of gerrymandering, what the actual examples of it are, the impact that it's had on their communities and their areas. And it has been extremely helpful. Also remarkable how well informed so many Hoosiers are about the redistricting process and how passionate they are about the hope that we can get to a point of much fairer, more equitable redistricting in this 2021 cycle. There are basically 4 areas that seem to summarize the feelings of the people that we've heard from in these various public hearings. First of all, trying to make sure that districts are drawn so that they are more competitive. The fact that we have so many races that are really competitive. Second, keep communities of interest together. There are many ways to measure communities in cities, towns, counties, school districts are perfect examples, but there are others as well. Representative Boyd mentioned the Mission Shoreline Group. That's an example of a community of interest. The Amish communities, for example. Try to keep those communities together rather than separate. And then divide cities and towns into as few and counties into as few districts as possible. We've got some unusual examples. Monroe County is sort of divided into 4 or 5 different districts. Even towns such as Michiana Shore, a town of 1,500 people divided into 2 senatorial districts. We've got a lot of examples of this. So try to avoid dividing cities, towns, and counties into as many districts as possible. And finally, create a transparent process. And we think this is a good indication of more transparency for the whole of these public hearings. But there's so many more examples of how to do it. And by all means, if there's an opportunity for these public hearings to be held after you've drawn the maps, it will be extremely important, I believe, for you to hear from the public about those maps when they're drawn. We will be having map drawing contests through the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission. We'll be submitting to you the best of the 3, so to speak, and we hope you'll take those into account. We want to be your partners in this process. We are not adversarial. We want to be your partners, help you with what is obviously a very challenging process. So the more we can do to do that, the better off we're all going to be. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Chris Harris, with the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Good evening, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. So my name is Chris Harris, I'm the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission, and I'm an independent member of the commission. A synopsis of what Lee had mentioned earlier, that Hoosiers want their maps. Hoosiers want to make sure that they have competitive districts, that they're able to hold their leaders accountable. For many people in our public hearings at screen expressed that they felt that their legislators were in districts that were safe, that they felt like that they were not, they did not be held accountable because they felt like they were safe. They did not have public hearings. They did not, or these Hoosiers didn't get their voices heard. And when we create safe districts, we undermine democracy. When people feel like their voices aren't heard, and their voices don't matter, they disengage in the process. And we really want to cut through the noise, the partisanship, because really our state is at stake. We want the best futures for our state. We want the best futures for our communities. We want to make sure that our communities represented are not trapped. You'd be surprised across the state how many people have heard from different cities, from Fort Wayne, Bloomington, Evansville, Indianapolis, where their communities were cracked to the point where, they didn't get their voices heard. And that's not right. That's not right for those citizens. It's not right for our state. It's not right for our democracy. So we really please hope that you listen, that you hear us, that you review our reports. If you have not had the opportunity to review or participate in our public hearings, find it on YouTube. If you Google Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission, all of our public hearings, each of Indiana's 9 congressional districts are available for you to review and actually hear what the Hoosiers have to say. So we please really want you to listen to us, and that this isn't just, for formality. These people are here for a reason. These people have a story. These people want to make sure that they have the best interests in their communities, that their voices are actually heard. So I appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
I was just handing a note that Representative Hatcher is here. Well, there you go.
Good evening. Should I say good afternoon? Anyway, I'm very happy to be here. I just got off the road from Manhattan. It's been down for the last couple of days trying to deal with the people doing this. In a sincere, truthful manner and effort as well. The Milwaukee Bucks, Milwaukee Bucks just won an NBA championship. A year ago, they were favored, but they lost. And they said one of the things that they were missing, they had a superstar center, but they needed a point guard and a shooter. And so they went out and recruited a shooter and a point guard. And that shooter and the point guard gelled with the superstar center and team. And the team won the championship this year. And I use that as an example in terms of Indiana and trying to compare it with political atmosphere that we have in the state of Indiana. So we've got 9 congressional districts, of which 7 are Republicans and 2 are Democrats. 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't like that. But why is it like that? It's like that because we had a redistricting. Doing it every 10 years, we have a redistricting. And when we had the redistricting, majority drew the map. And they drew the map unfavorably. They said it was favorable, but it was not. And case in point, we got 9 Republicans, 2 Democrats in the whole state of Indiana, 6.5 million people. And so in Indiana, you got 92 counties. The largest county is Marion County, then case in point, Lake County, and then Allen County. Now, when you have these gatherings right here, you would think that you want to hear from the majority of the people. So Marion County, and then Lake County, and then the other counties. But then when I stepped back and heard about what's going on, I hear that Lake County was bypassed. Why? I don't know. I don't know what exactly powers that you have. Now, I'm hoping that you have the powers to be fair about this redistricting issue, counting of the numbers and all that. In the General Assembly, we had an outside commission to look at everything. And matter of fact, we had a vote to determine whether or not we should have an outside commission look at it independently of not having legislative participation. Because at that point, even though the General Assembly decides that they can take the recommendations from outside, which is my ideal commission, independent commission came up. Well, when it came up, when it came time to support it, all of a sudden, for some reason, we backed up and said, no, we want to keep control. And so, I want us to be sincere. I'm very sincere about the district I represent. And I'm sincere to the point where I don't care how bad or how good the bill sounds. I read every piece of legislation. I stay up at night. I'm sleepy now. Going through it, I had a tax seminar today, a tax issue. And part of that dealt with a big problem we had in Lake County. I went to bed at 3 o'clock this morning, and I'm still up right now because it's important. Because when you represent people, you're giving your all. You gotta be honest, sincere, and devoted to it. You can't give a lip service. You gotta go through the actions. You gotta show people that you wanna do it, and I do. Most of you know me. I get 2 colleagues right there. That's with everything. Got 3 matter of fact, 4 matter of fact, even 5 matter of fact. That's why we have participation. Mr. Morris, I'm pleased to see you. I have not seen you in a while. He and I have been way back. That's about. But my point is, whatever authority you have, I'm hoping that you have the authority to do something about it. That you be fair and accurate about it. Because your starting out point has not been, to my opinion, fair. Because as well as Lake County is doing pretty everybody, every soul should be included in terms of your evaluation, which means what? You gotta talk to people. Everybody, every region, every section, every city has a different talent, expertise, experience, knowledge that adds to the mix. That adds to the mix of what? A consistent, good, outstanding state. We always want to say that Hoosier State is the #1 state in the Midwest. Then we go from there. So how can we say that when you go and you ignore the minority population within the state? You have. There's a very vital role in the makeup and the development and the future direction of this state. They do. Think about it. Let's think about the basic fundamental things. We, as people, it's hot outside during the day, right? So what do? When we get home, turn that air conditioner on, right? But have we ever started to think about who invented the air conditioner? We haven't there. In the wintertime, it's cold outside. We want some heat. So what do? Turn the thermostat, turn the furnace on. You know who invented the furnace? African-American woman. When you need blood plasma, the shortage of right, you got a blood bank. Who did start of that? Okay, gas mains. Washington, D.C. So we contribute a lot to this country. So it's time that recognition to I did not come prepared for this whole speech dissertation. Reverend Pryor, she said, well, I didn't talk too much and everything. I try not to sometimes. So the cook always said me, I ask too many questions in the committee meetings, but I do that and everything. But I do that selectively. Selectively when I see that there is injustice. And right needs to be correct. Someone needs to be in there, do the right thing. And that's what I'm all about. Nothing else. I'm not looking for nothing else other than you just being fair. And you be fair by showing kindness. Just like when you go back to Milwaukee Bucks, your superstar said, you show me that you mean that you want a championship, And he showed them by doing what? Going out, pulling in the pieces that was needed, necessary to win the championship. So let's be winners for Indiana. Be fair in terms of the process. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Reverend Sue Arrington from Muncie to our committee. Welcome, good to have you here. And also Representative Jackson. Representative Jackson is in the audience. Where are you, Representative Jackson? There you are. Good to have you. At this time, we're going to take a moment's recess. The audio is not coming through the live stream, and it's suggested we move the mic up here. So we're going to take a moment's recess, get set up for that, and then we will be here in just a moment.
It may just be good enough for this. We'll find out. Where is that? I think so.
This time I'd like to recognize Steve Lotsky. I'm going to ask our speakers to come up to this side of the stage and come up to the podium and speak to the mic here at the podium so that the live stream audio can catch it and make sure we're getting a good live stream both for those who are watching now for live stream and also for the recording that will be uploaded to the website. We want to make sure that we have the best audio that we have as possible. So Steve Polansky from Munster on the Munster Town Council to recognize at this time, and that's it. I'm gonna start calling people on deck. I'd like for those I call on deck to come and sit over here in this front row so that when you're next up, we can get right up here. You can applause, just don't continue to applaud because we'll limit our time. Give me at least a moment of time to get the next person up here. Appreciate that. There's 33 people yet to testify. So keep your comments as concise as possible, and we appreciate you being here. Steve?
All right, thank you.
I'd like to get Robert Cotton. Robert Cotton from Valparaiso. You can be on deck.
All right, thank you. My name is Steve Tulowitzki. I'm in my first term on the town council, Munster, Indiana. It can sometimes be intimidating to put your name on that paper, grab the microphone up here and come and speak, but I really think it's very important that I'm 45, so I don't know if I'm old or young, but the younger people get involved. At this point, you have learned what you needed to learn from your community, you can come up and make a difference. And so as it is regarding redistricting, I just want to share something from the heart. I work as a leadership coach, and I work with leaders all throughout different levels of the organization. And I know, and they know when they're doing the right thing, when they're being real leaders, they know when they're being disingenuous, or when people, more importantly, are being disingenuous with them. And so I'm really just calling on everyone. Also, as a new council member, it feels great when there's a bipartisan thing, when I look across or sit at a table and work on a committee with my members, even if they're from the other party. It just feels great to do something where we all know we're partnering together. We're doing what the community wants us to do. And I think deep down, each human being knows when you're being ingenuous, authentic, leading, or if you're doing something that's tricky. And more importantly, all the people in the state are gonna know when something doesn't smell right. So that's all. My plea is to listen to these committees and communities and map drawing contests, all the ingenuity of the Hoosiers across the state of Indiana that want to provide input to this. Please listen to them and work with everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I drove from Lake County, but it was worth it.
On deck, Evan Davis from Fort Wayne. On deck, this time I'd like to recognize Robert Cotton. Do we have a Robert Cotton? All right, Evan, looks like you're up.
Yes, my name is Evan Davis. I live in Fort Wayne. Thank you for your time here. I can't go to the one in Fort Wayne. I guess
You could maybe just pick up the mic. Oh.
I'll try it this way. You can lean over. Thank you for holding this. I live in Fort Wayne, but I can't make the meeting tomorrow, so I came here today, which is evidence of how important I think this situation is, and I appreciate, again, the time you folks are giving to it. My immediate concern is in Fort Wayne. There's been discussion already about packing and cracking and all that kind of thing. There's a specific example in the House map in Fort Wayne as it exists right now. Fort Wayne's population is such that we should easily be able to get 4 state legislators from 4 state representatives from Fort Wayne. My understanding is we only have 3 at the moment. The map clearly has the city cracked with largely rural areas taking a piece of the city here, a piece of the city there, a piece of the city there, resulting that the city itself is not properly represented. And we have a large African-American population and also a lot of other minority folks in Fort Wayne who at the moment have no immediate representation per se in the General Assembly. So I think that would be something that could be gained by keeping Fort Wayne more compact and not breaking it up. More generally, there's a lot of talk going on these days about fair elections. Frankly, personally, I think some of that is hooey, but nevertheless, that's the talk these days, and a lot of it in Indiana too. And I guess I don't think there's anything the General Assembly could do to more clearly show that they want fair elections than to create fair maps. That is crucial to the country. It's my understanding that the General Assembly has a constitutional responsibility to create the maps, but not necessarily the responsibility to draw the maps. And you pass the maps, but not necessarily to draw them. Point being, whether it's this independent commission that has come together, or perhaps a panel of perhaps demographers from major universities in Indiana, there could easily be established an independent entity to pick from the publicly created maps, and then the legislators would have the responsibility to make a final decision, instead of the legislative process itself being one of creating all the maps to the benefit of particular legislators, or to just push out some other legislators. So I would ask you to please consider a process that lets you of course, have the final decisions, but let others present really good, fair maps from which you can choose. And finally, I just want to note, as a longtime Hoosier, my ancestors are longtime Hoosiers. Much I admire about Indiana, but we are not known for being ahead of the curve in terms of really progressive and helpful legislation. This is kind of thing that isn't going to cost tax money or whatever you want to call it, but we would really heighten the impact of Indiana's image in the whole country as a leading state for election fairness if we adopted the kind of things I'm talking about. So I hope you will please consider it. Thank you.
Susie Talvesky. Susie Talvesky.
I'm Robert Cotton, and I will claim for spot.
Robert Cotton, you'll be recognized. You could step to the podium, and then Susan Telvesky, if you could be on deck. Robert Cotton is the Valparaiso, Indiana City Government.
So, welcome to my city. My name is Robert Cotton, and I didn't really come with a whole lot of prepared remarks. However, I've been at the table for a long time on both sides, leadership as well as an activist, if you will, trying to get out the votes. And I think what I've been taken by is how much accountability is lost, how we lose accountability when elected officials pick their electors, their votes. I've also seen how when we lose that accountability, we lose interest. And we've seen just a remarkable decline in voter turnout as a progressive, or let's say regressive, impact of people feeling as though their voice doesn't count. I made my slogan, which to me is more than a slogan, every voice counts. And in that, look at me, an African-American man, elected official in Valparaiso, serving in the second year of my second term. And so I think it's just a ridiculous thing for us to not recognize how common our interests are right across the board as it relates to the greater prize, and that's the dream and the promise of America. The dream and the promise that says an engaged electorate that has the ability to engage in such a way as there's a debate and there's a fair hearing for everybody in the public square, that I think we're seeing the effect of that in what happens nationally as well as locally in the state, with us becoming so really harshly divided. People talk about, when you speak about diversity, you're actually being racist and divisive. And I think that that's counterintuitive, when in fact we look right at the way that we've kind of funneled ourselves off or tunneled ourselves off in various districts that we have in such a way as not to understand that in and of itself is probably one of the most important contributing factors to why we are becoming so entrenched in our division and our dividedness. Valparaiso City Council in 2016, we passed Resolution 8 2016, and I was very proud to usher that legislation, if you want to call it that. My state reps, we call it local code, local resolution. But it was a resolution asking for a study committee, asking for the General Assembly to engage with Common Cause effort to have an engaged, independent factor or function, citizen engaged function in a partisan process that involved both Republican and Democrat, as well as the biggest stakeholders in the whole transaction, and that's us, the electorate. We passed that resolution on a skinny margin, but we did it. We did it in a city that would have uncharacteristically been, thought to believe, as many of the Republicans in the state had expressed during that time, as well as many other informed citizens, how important it is to have competitive elections. I was talking to people, talking to Senator Charbonneau, he's in here somewhere, about how disappointed I was that Illinois did not move in such a way as to try to do something to make their super Democratic majority a little bit less dominant. And then when I echoed that sentiment to someone who's aware of the competitive differences between Illinois and Indiana, there's even with the Democratic stronghold in Illinois, we still are far worse in how uncompetitive our elections are. I fear for our nation. I think that this really bears on the essence of what was created for us to get involved with in a manner that we trust ourselves as people with diverse interests and unique talents, as the senator referenced to all the great creative talent through Black people. It's not about Black people, not about white people, it's about America. And quite frankly, you know, I think it's something a fair and competitive map for Indiana. So thank you very much.
And on deck, Representative Carol Jackson. On deck, you can come down, Subi.
Hello, my fellow Hoosiers. So great to see so many people come out here and know that this is a super important meeting. Too bad it's not taking place next door in Lake County. And let you know that one of the most important issues of this year is this redistricting. It's going to be important for an entire decade. And the most crucial thing we need to do is have a citizens redistricting commission that is fully independent, not controlled by one party. The power elite in the Republican Party that has done a great job of destroying this state. Now, people have good moral conscience that have a decent sense of fairness to fight for all of these people here and every single Hoosier in this state that is suffering. Okay, you guys are doing a great job of disenfranchising voters, where people know that, hey, my vote doesn't matter. Why should I even go and vote when you are picking your voters? No, that's not the way it's supposed to work in a democracy. Gerrymandering is an abomination to democracy. Great phone numbers, libertarians, they all deserve a voice. And the vast majority of the people are actually independents. They want to hear all of the views. And they want to say, what is the best solution for such and such a political problem? You're never going to find the best solutions when you shut down the voices of the people. Because only the people can create a great state. And this state has the potential to be the best state in the country, but we are literally at the bottom of the barrel. And every single quality of life indicator, every single one. Because we have the reputation. People can look at these maps. People can look how gerrymandered they are. What do you think? People are dumb? People are not dumb. So you guys really need to, excuse me, Representative Sunday, I am talking to you, sir. Okay? You are my representative. So everything's right. You listen. Well, I'm not done yet. I am, but one of the members here, who's my representative, apparently thinks it's a great idea to ignore me. Now, just keep it simple. I am keeping it simple, but I think it's impolite. He does not pay attention to what I'm saying. And the entire time Councilor Cotton was up here, he was on his phone. So I think that's very important. Okay, but I need all of you to listen. Listen up. You're the Hoosiers. Listen to what the people say. You guys have power. You guys have ultimate power. But do you really sleep well at night, knowing that you could abuse that power with impunity? That you can do what you want to do with this thing? And the little people, hell with them. You know what? The wheel of life always turns. And maybe we're at the bottom now, but the people will rise. Okay? And all the people here are going to keep fighting. You can all talk about Lake County. Listen, Lake County is the second biggest, most important county in this state. And you guys chose to ignore Lake County. Not from Porter County, but I've got strong ties and roots to state, because this is where the economic engine of this state is. So I'm gonna give you all the room. Do not even think about coming for CD1, okay, like you guys are applying. Because I tell you what, we're gonna fight that. So again, we need not Valparaiso, we need an independent, actually, redistricting commission that is completely fair, that's gonna redraw these maps in a fair way for all Hoosiers, so that we have a fair shot at electing our representatives. So when they go down to Indianapolis, okay, that they're gonna be able to come up with really great ideas to represent these people, okay? So we won't be dead last in nursing home quality of care. So we won't be dead last with what's going on with the foster children and the child protection services down in Indianapolis, okay? So we won't be the problem with mentality, okay, where children are dying, babies are dying, and mothers are dying, okay? Every single day, if you are sent down to be a representative for this state, for these people, you need to fight for the people, for the little guys, and not the corporations, the corporations that fill your pockets with commissions. You know what? We need a redistricting commission comprised of the people of this state. Gerrymandering is an abomination, people, fight on!
Jackson, John Briggs on deck. John Briggs, President Carolyn Jackson from him.
Good evening, Chairman Westcott and members of the committee. Thank you all so much for coming up here. I am sure that each and every one of you came up here to listen, and I'm sure in listening you will learn that we want fair redistricting. We know that in the past that it's not happened. So we're calling on each and every one of you to go back to your caucuses, call your buddies, your other legislators, and ask them to get on board with this. We're tired of being in the bottom category when it comes to almost everything. It is time for us to take into account each and every citizen in the state. Let them have a voice to select the legislator that they would like to represent them. I happened to look at the statistics for the last couple of years, and there were like only 40 people running against 150 legislators. That's embarrassing. That's not showing that we want to see a change. What that's showing is that those individuals in those 100 districts are afraid to put their name on the ballot because they know that the deck is stacked against them. If we do our job and we do it effectively, efficiently, and we do the right thing, when election time comes along, you don't have to worry about whether you'll get elected or not because you know you did your job. You don't have to worry about someone running against you because you know they won't run because they're happy with what you're doing. So let's be fair. I'm calling on you to do what is right. No gerrymandering, no drawing the lines so that they're shaped all kind of crazy ways so you can go around this particular individual's home because they live on the border. And if you go one block or half a block over, you get them in a position where they can't run again. All those tricks are not good. They're not fair. And they come back later to haunt you. We were elected to do what is right, what is correct for those individuals, not just in our district, not just the 60-some thousand that we represent that can vote for us, but for the entire state. You know and I know that there's no one downstate that can vote for you but you. That's how it is. So let's just do the right thing. And I'm asking you, you know, I always say a good listener is a good learner. So I'm asking you all to learn and go back and tell it.
Branch 3061. Don Briggs on deck. Pat Joyner from Maryville. That's Don.
Hi, yes, I'm Don Briggs. I want to focus on competitive districts. The lack of competitive districts that aren't effectively competitive, drive two important problems that reduce our trust in elections. We've heard a lot at the national level about lack of trust in elections. You folks can do something about that. One of the problems is lack of competitive elections reduces turnout. If I remember my numbers correctly, Indiana is number 42 out of 50 in turnout in a recent election. The other bad effect, the worst effect probably, is the extremism. Lack of competitive elections drives extremism, well, frankly, in both parties. It doesn't work for our side, and it's beginning not to work for the Republicans. I also want to reiterate this notion of independent redistricting. You don't need to draw up legislation and get the governor's approval to do this. You just need to do it. Consult with some experts, some subject matter experts, and let them draw some lines, and then throw up a set of candidate maps to the legislature, let them vote. It doesn't take a whole program. Common Cause is one of those organizations that's drawing up maps. Common Cause is one of those organizations that's backing this business of independently drawn maps. Consult with them, you'll get the job done. Thank you.
On deck, Stephen Mays. Pat Joyner. Stephen Mays. Stephen Mays. Barbara Bowling Williams. From Gary, representing the Indiana State NCAA. On deck will be Robert Buggs. On deck will be Robert Buggs. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. I thank all of you for being here. And I say, welcome to Northern Indiana. I would have said, welcome to Lake County, Indiana, but I'm saying, welcome to Northern Indiana. I'm Barbara Bowling Williams. I live east of State Road 912, north of Interstate 94, west of Interstate 65, south of Lake Michigan, and Interstate 90. I also serve as Indiana State Conference President of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. So my testimony today is given as a person who lives in the city of Gary and in the county of Lake. But my comments expand and to encompass and regard all of the state of Indiana. I have seen the harms that occur when a single party dominates and rules with a supermajority in our state legislature. I have seen the disrespect and disregard of our elected representatives in what is supposed to be the people's house in this state. Our elected officials were not only disrespected, but the thousands of people who elected them too were disregarded and disrespected. And to this day, The worst offenders have yet to apologize. No more, I said. The time is now to change your message to the people of Indiana. The time is now to make sure that the map redrawing process is open, fair, transparent, and responsive. We want districts that keep communities of interest together. We want districts that encourage competitive elections. We want districts that conform with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That act prohibits the drawing of maps that discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in a language minority community either, especially not intentionally or that results in discrimination. NAACP is a member of the All In for Democracy Coalition, along with Common Cause. And together, we demonstrated that Indiana could assemble a Citizens Redistricting Commission that held public hearings and memorialized what people want to see and how they want the maps drawn. Just as I am here today, I attended several of those meetings. I strongly urge you to read the report that they issued. Adopt their recommendations and look at the maps that they are going to be submitting. Once you have redrawn the districts, give us an opportunity to weigh in on what those look like. And we deserve no less, and we will accept no less. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Buggs from Gary. On deck, Vanita Shah. On deck, Vanita Shah. Robert recognizing the NAACP Gary branch. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Buggs, as has been said, and I'm just here to say that you heard most of our representatives speak already. Can you all hear me? Yes. Speak already. They know each one of us by name on a first name basis. And most of the citizens know them on a first name basis. To create an area where we have a so-called free safe zone, where you don't need those people that need the goods and services that you all provide, is unfair. Now, I understand the law states that the prevailing majority party has the right by law to draw the districts. That's law. Gerrymandering is against the law. Each one of y'all, when you are elected, you don't go into a room with a private caucus, you go out to meet the people. I'm going to give you an example. If you take goods and services, because you represent the whole state of Indiana, on a vote, and you name one ward Democrat and one Republican, and you didn't use the Democrat vote, you just used the Republican, you just want to go around and around in circles. So the rest of the people are not going to receive the goods and services for what you were elected to provide. Now, I'm also a disabled veteran. I pledged my life for that flag, United States of America. Now, before you all make laws for the state of Indiana, you stand up and put your hand over your heart and say, one nation, under God, indivisible, which means we are not divided. That's why it's the United States. But the fact that we're in Valparaiso and Porter County for this public hearing is a sign to me of a divide. That's what it is. The Pledge of Allegiance says, one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. Let that include the black and brown people of Northwest Indiana. Cameron, East Chicago, Crown Point, Winfield, Holbrook, Lake Station, Portage, Chesterton, East Chicago, and Hamilton. We have all of these, we all have a common interest. We all need goods and services, not just those that are provided in certain areas that we have never heard of before, because you're elected by the people, for the people, and the government should be by and for the people, not just some people, not just some people. By a different analogy, if you was taking a shower and one arm was a Republican and one was a Democrat, and you don't use a Democrat, you're not going to take care of the body for which God intended both arms to work independently, you know. I don't mean to, but that's what I'm trying to give you an analogy of what this is to a layperson. So I ask you all, the next time that you get ready to make this redistricting or make laws for the state of Indiana for all of the citizens, think about when you get to that part where you say, one nation under God, indivisible, and mean it with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Fort County on deck, Barbara Hargrove. Welcome, Benita.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Benita Shaw. I am a resident of Michigan City, Indiana, and I stand here as co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Fort County. We thank you for conducting these hearings all across the state today and tomorrow. For the sake of our democracy and for all those beyond our shores who are watching closely, we encourage you to preserve with integrity our democratic process. We ask that you construct fair and equitable voting districts that are designed for the people, by the people, and of the people, that you give serious consideration to the work and recommendations of the nonpartisan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, and above all, that you make redistricting a transparent process. Transparency promotes accountability and public engagement, which enhances the government's effectiveness and improves the quality of its decisions. Transparency is at the heart of how citizens hold their public officials accountable. To assure transparency in this process, the House and Senate Elections Committees need to allow the public to submit maps for consideration. You need to study and consider recommendations in the report by the Nonpartisan Independent Commission, Citizens Redistricting Commission. You need to give the public access to all data that you will use to draw maps and what criteria you will prioritize in that. You need to disclose contracts with consultants that you hire to help with this, with the mapping. You need to conduct meetings in public, and you need to hold public meetings after giving the public adequate time to study your initial maps and proposals. We hope that you will help prove that democracy is not just a grand experiment, but the most honorable form of government that there is. Thank you.
On deck, on deck, Mr. Cafferty. Welcome, Barbara.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome all those present here today who represent the crossroads of America, which is what Indiana is known as. The citizens of Northwest Indiana are a diverse group of citizens from all walks of life who represent a true picture of the American dream. Unfortunately, that dream is not realized in Indiana when each voter is not valued or counted. Hoosiers understand the importance of redistricting. We know it needs to focus on voters and communities, not politicians and those presently serving. Those in charge must strive for everyone to be heard and explain what data went into your maps. After the maps are drawn, they must be shown throughout the states and explained so that all citizens may see and understand which criteria went into the maps. Unfortunately, reports show that Indiana maps are 95% more partisan than all maps in this country. 95%. That number just blew my mind. That might be why in 2011, nobody wanted to talk about the results. This is the main reason that no matter how hard myself and others are concerned, we really and truly need to have a group of people who are not just from one party. We need to have a group who have got public access to the info and help this group seriously work toward transparency so that we may all be considered. These statistics are not something we're proud of, and the citizens of Northwest Indiana challenge the legislators in charge of this monumental challenge to go beyond politics and promises to other politicians and remember your oath to the citizens of Indiana. And I want to read this oath because I think it's really important. A gentleman talked about his oath to this country. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and to the Constitution of the State of Indiana, that I will faithfully discharge my duties as a member of the House of Representatives of the General Assembly. We declare that all power is inherent in the people, not myself, inherent in the people, and that all free governments are right, ought to be founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and well-being. For the advancement of these ends, the people have at all times an indefeasible right to alter and reform their government. Thank you for your attention, and we in Northwest Indiana look forward to seeing the maps brought to Gary, Indiana.
Dennis McCaffrey from Porter. On deck, Timothy J. Cox. Welcome, Dennis.
Welcome. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dennis McCaffrey. I'm the president of the Northern Indiana Area Labor Federation. Well, unfortunately, I'm here to talk about a bad memory. 10 years ago, I participated in a very similar experience during the 2010 census remapping and redistricting. And we were told at the time that don't worry, the process will be fair, everything will be fine. Well, here we are 10 years later, living in a right to work state, first of all. Second of all, the quality of life has deteriorated immensely since then. And I guess what I want to say is that while I appreciate the committee and their work, to me, there's no credibility involved in this process at all. We arrived at that then. I believe we're just being slowed over now. And I hope and pray that everybody goes out there and fights like hell for a fair map. I challenge everybody on this committee in the House and the Senate to make sure the map is fair and to undo the wrongdoing that was done 10 years ago to the working people of Indiana, our veterans, our seniors, our healthcare workers, public sector people, people of color, women, teachers, absolutely. So take this back to do the right thing, make a fair map, and let's right the wrongs from 10 years ago. Thank you.
Is James Builder. On deck, James Builder. Welcome.
Welcome. One thing about redistricting that I'm really sensing is, at least in some cases, a lot of animosity And I think a lot of you have noticed the animosity in the last couple election cycles. I'm here to tell you, supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves. I love every liberal, moderate, and conservative. No matter what you are, I still love you. Everyone, and we should treat each other with kindness, love, and respect, regardless of the political spectrum we're at. And I'm just seeing that lacking. I'm not saying that's every single one of you. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just seeing that nationwide, and I'm seeing it somewhat here. So let's remember when we're redistricting to love our neighbor as ourselves and do unto others as you have them do unto you. If the roles were reversed, what would you want? So I ended up saying that. I hadn't planned on saying that, but I think that's the most important thing I had to say. The other thing I would just like to mention is my district, District 8, Ryan Dvorak, he's been in, well, his father was in since 1982. He's been in since 2003. So this is a family dynasty, District 8. And I'm in that district, and I'm only one of, I believe, 2 or 3 townships in LaPorte County, and then it's all St. Joe County. That makes it very difficult to win an election. We're talking about specifically drawing fair maps. I'd like to see maybe possibly more of St. Joe County in District 8. I just think that would be part of loving your neighbor as yourself and doing to others as you have them do unto you. Thank you.
Please go there from
builder. And I guess I'm proud to say I'm really nobody. I don't have any union titles or elected titles or anything after my name. I moved here a year ago from Illinois, and I know Indiana has taken some lumps today. One of the reasons I came here is Indiana is ranked in the United States of America as number 7 for opportunity. And I think that's a very good thing, and that's one of the reasons I'm proud to be able to call myself a Hoosier today. Because of what Indiana does. I'm also a retired member. I saw some blue shirts here of the American Federation of Teachers. I taught community college for 19 years. I'm happy to do that. I pity the job that all of you have, because no matter what map you walk away with, somebody somewhere in this great state is going to say it's gerrymandering. We didn't get what we want, so therefore we're unhappy with the map. And this is a situation that is really occurring in many areas across the country. Blue states are becoming bluer, red states are becoming redder. I don't know, from the little bit I know of Indiana politics, if somebody were going to draw a map, if they were going to say, we're going to make a county that's heavily Republican, more Democratic, or we're going to make a county that may be more Democratic, like Lake, somehow more Republican. I don't know that those kinds of things are really capable of being done. But someone said here, at least not to everybody's satisfaction, as I guess we just learned. But I think this, as was brought up, communities of interest. We have rural, we have suburban, we have urban, just like we would in any other areas. Draw those to help those people. Let the people make the decision along the partisan lines of what they would be glad to have. The Supreme Court had said in Rucco versus Common Cause that when it comes to gerrymandering, they didn't want to take any part of it because they said that political aspects like that are outside the court's jurisdiction. So it's a hot potato, and that's why I said I don't envy the job that you have to do, but I do think that you've all done an exceptional job. I'm happy that this meeting is here today. Happy to be a Hoosier. This is a great state, and ladies and gentlemen, I know you'll do your best to keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Kenneth Taylor, Valparaiso, down on deck. Terry Brudell. Terry Brudell on deck. Welcome.
Thank you. You know, I've been in this game of politics for over 45 years. And one of the things I remember back when I was youngster growing up, my grandmother told me, always be careful of what you ask for. I've heard a great number of speakers today ask for competitive districts. Well, if you take a look at Lake County, you start asking for competitive districts, and you'll probably have 25 districts. By the time you try to take and look at Lake County and how democratic it is, and now you want competitive districts, you're saying, I want to have part of Porter County, part of Newton County, part of Jasper County, part of Pulaski County as part of Lake County, because that's the only way you're going to get competitive districts. So that's one consideration that people have asked for today. Another consideration that people have asked for is representation of minorities. And that is a very common call. And when you start looking at representation of minorities, now you're looking at narrower concerns. You put that against 50-50, and how does that work on a mapping process? Then you say, let's not break up cities and towns. Let's not break up school districts. Let's not break up counties. Let's keep everything continuous. What does that do to the maps? One of the quotes that I will leave you with as I close today is from the National Conference of State Legislatures, and it's Redistricting Law 2020. It says it's rarely possible to fully honor all the principles and criteria that frequently conflict with each other. And I'm going to tell you today, standing here, the maps drawn by these people will be challenged. The maps drawn by anybody would be challenged because it is a very difficult and unseemingly impossible task to put all the conflicting interests together. So again, be careful what you ask for, because what you ask for may be what you get, but you don't like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. The audience will please respect the speakers and not interrupt their comments. Very brutal. Very brutal on that whole murder.
My name is Terry Brendel. I started teaching in 1969. Taught in Valparaiso for 38 years. The last decade, it was decided that I should be a government teacher. And as I look out over this audience, and I look up here, I see a number of people who came into my classroom at my invitation to talk to my students, because I thought it was important to hear from our legislators. It's also important for our legislators to hear from us. When I came today, I was just going to listen, but I decided I have to speak too. I have a number of titles in my past. I have a cap here. It says Indiana State Teachers Association, because I was on the board of directors and on the executive committee. I chaired the local political action committee. I spoke for and tried to get our endorsement of both Republicans and Democrats. I am old, no doubt about it. I've been voting for more than 50 years. And at that time, I voted on almost 2/3 of those elections for both Republicans and Democrats. It has become more and more difficult in the last 20 years to do that. there's been a change. And the political party that I was once kind of a part of has moved away from me. And so I would like a chance to bring that party back to the center, to elect people who will represent me at the state legislature. And that process will involve what you were doing. I know Mr. Taylor, we used to play bridge together, not played in a few years. And I respect his ability at the bridge table. I didn't totally agree with what he was saying before, though. Because if I look at our congressional delegation, we have 2 Democrats and 9 Republicans. If we were close to any parity, that 20% of Democrats should reflect the number of votes cast in the state. I'm going to round off here. Indiana typically is 46% Democrat, 54% Republican. Those are round numbers. I'm cheating just a little bit. If that were the case, there would be 4 representatives in Congress with D beside their name. But there are not. 10 years ago, when the maps were withdrawn, or were drawn rather, not withdrawn, were drawn, they had as an aspect of them a rather sizable chunk of money put into the drawing of the maps. I understand the Koch brothers were quite generous in their contribution. And I can understand how the maps you drew at that time reflected their interests. I would like the maps to reflect my interest as a centrist. Big data and big computers, supercomputers, have made it possible to track every one of us, to know how we have voted and how we are likely to vote in the next election. And that gives the power to gerrymander each and every district in such a way as to guarantee a result that is not acceptable to me. I would like to believe that the words of the people here will have an impact upon you. But I also know that there are political interests from your side that will make that difficult. It would please me to see maps that are drawn reflect the reality of who we Hoosiers are, and not what party is in power. I ask you to do the best that you can to move in that direction. Thank you.
Going back to Rita Smith. Folks, we have heard from 21 people. We still have about 20 people signed up. So we could abbreviate our comments as much as possible to allow everyone to speak. And we will limit it to 4 minutes. All right, Cole?
Okay, great. I'm going to keep my brief. Gerrymandering is cheating, and none of you are cheaters, right? Right. At this point, I don't think that there's much new that you need to learn. You know what we want? So there's only one thing left to do. Come back when you're serious and when you have something to show. Thanks.
On deck. I don't know if that's John or Joanne Milcore from Portage. John or Joanne, I believe it's Joanne.
Michael, M-I-K-O-L.
There, that's probably it, Michael. Redistricting. Oh.
I'll take a few moments. Unfortunately, I think that no matter what everyone said here, that it's all fallen on deaf ears. I don't think anything will change. I think you sit here and, you know, put on a good face, but we're all out here, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think that you will, you know, do what you're told to do, and you will not take into consideration the people of the state of Indiana. And I think it's very sad, and I think it will come back in the end to bite you, because we see what's happening throughout the country. And Representative Soliday, you're my representative, and I'm sorry. You've been way too long.
Man, you can keep your comments in that.
But like I said, he's been way too long. And so all I'm saying now is, I don't know who's a Democrat and who's a Republican here. Well, I think it's got one Democrat. But I don't think that you guys can do a darn thing. And I'm just sad for the rest of most of the people that are here, because it's not going to go anywhere, guys. You know, this is it. Thank you.
Joanne.
Michael.
Joanne Michael on deck, Christine Punchsy. Joanne Michael from Portage, welcome.
Thank you. I came originally expecting to see potential maps that we could look at, discuss, so I was a little surprised that that doesn't happen. In this state, we have two of the best universities in the country, Purdue and Indiana University. Why could their political science departments not make it projects to suggest maps? Students at that age are really a little more apolitical. They're not steadfast Republicans or Democrats. They're more independent. They're open to ideas. So maybe you don't like Common Cause, but we've got two great universities. Why could we not ask those students? This wouldn't be a cost, because it could be part of their project, which would save us money. And they could come up with some maps. When we do gerrymandering, which I remember learning about back in the 60s in civics class, instead of focusing on the needs of the people, all of a sudden the elected people are focused on getting reelected and making their friends get reelected. So it shifts the purpose of taking care of us to taking care of them. So I think we need to be a lot more open-minded, use the people that we have, because that will actually engage them rather than telling them it's the same old thing. Thank you very much. Oh, and Mr. Soledad, we have watched you look at your watch, play with your phone, and talk to people. That is embarrassing to me as my representative. Thank you.
On deck, Janine Harrison.
So I think that I'm most likely
to the far, far right of most of you. But I do agree with the fact that it should be the citizens who draw these districts. My point of a representative up here who is on a committee to kill certain representatives' bills. Why should he be in charge of districting where that representative is running? We have to remember that it is we, the people, who are in charge here. We, the people, make up the state. We create the state, and the creative is never more powerful than the creator. We have to keep that in mind, and we have to make them accountable.
Green Heritage in Highlands, Indiana. On deck, Sam Barloga. On deck, Sam Barloga, welcome to the meeting.
Good afternoon. The broad strokes have already been covered, so I just want to mention a few specifics. First of all, in terms of Lake County, we do have Ivy Tech campuses in both Gary and in Chicago. As has been indicated, we do need a second round of hearings once the maps have been drawn. And it would be wonderful if these could be held on evenings and weekends instead of 3 to 5 p.m. on a Friday, when people are either still at work or in their in order for us to provide meaningful input, the maps should be, proposals should be released at least one month before the deadline for them being actualized, which means that they should be released no later than September 20th, or the process should be extended. It's been said over and over that we need to encourage competitive elections in all districts. And so my husband was invited to speak at Butler University a couple of years ago. And afterward, we went out with the professor who invited us, and he's originally from Northwest Indiana. And he said he's shocked. He's been down living near Butler for 20 years now. And he goes to the polls, and there are no Democratic candidates for him to vote for. So we need to have, there should be no election that does not include a Democratic candidate on the ballot for each position. All data, in terms of transparency, all data used or consulted to create the maps should be made available for public viewing. And we've already heard here today proposals that either non or bipartisan commissions lead the map redrawing, and another option besides that and besides students would be to use a computer generated algorithm to generate unbiased compact maps. So to conclude, the people of Indiana are tired of gerrymandering, and we demand significant change. Thank you.
Sam Barloga from Gary Times. On deck is Amy Nundor. On deck, Amy Nundor. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, for coming. You know, I wanted to say the same thing that a lot of other speakers have said. As a resident of Lake County, we had 3 Ivy Tech campuses in Lake County, one in East Chicago, one in Gary, and one in Crown Point. It would have been very easy for you guys to hold the meeting in Crown Point today instead of in Valparaiso. Also, on top of ignoring the concerns of the people in the second largest county in the state, we've been really lucky in Northwest Indiana. If you look at those maps over there in the last 2 decades, we've had Lake and Porter County been together in our map. And I think that's really, really important, because growing up in Crown Point, I grew up in Crown Point, I have cousins who grew up in Valparaiso. We see each other in Lake and Porter County as one area, and it's one big community of interest. I know Representative Boyd said the Lake Michigan shoreline, that has a lot to do with it as well, but the national park that goes within 2 counties, our only national park in Indiana. So I want to make sure that this committee takes in the concerns of the people of Northwest Indiana, that we are one community of interest, and that we've been blessed to have one representative in Congress who represents all of Northwest Indiana for at least going back here for decades. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Randolph from Valparaiso. On deck, Margaret Willis from Chesterton. Amy, are you here? Oh, okay. On deck, Margaret Willis. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, I'm short, so I don't have to move this microphone at all. Thank you guys for coming. This is the first time I've ever been to Monty. And thank you to Ivy Tech for hosting this. They've done a fantastic job, and the staff is so friendly. I've heard people comment about why it shouldn't be here, but I'm delighted because I never would have had the opportunity to come because I work. So I've lived in 6 different states in 2 different countries. And I can tell you that Indiana is a fantastic place to live. I'm thrilled to be here, and contrary to things that I've heard before, we're not in the bottom rankings of everything. You don't have to believe me. You can look at U.S. News Report and see. It's not my facts. You know, I don't envy your job because you have a lot of people very angry about this and a lot of fairness. And I'm a single mom, and I hear a lot about fairness from my kids very frequently, and that's not an issue that you can win very easily, because somebody's always feels that it's not fair. And I have this innate sense that everybody tries to do the best for each other, and I'm really hoping that we all remember that we're not enemies, that we're all Hoosiers, and there's goodness and there's kindness in everybody, and I hope we take that and remember we don't have to look at each other as enemies, because we're really not. We have more in common than what we think, and the goals should be shared. And I think that anybody that's in this position up here is not up there because they want to see Indiana go fail or do bad or have people hurt. So thank you for stepping up and doing this. I'm hoping that whatever happens and comes through will be good for all Hoosiers. I guess the only way you'll know that it was really fair is if nobody's happy with the end product. So, and thank you so much.
Margaret Willis. On deck is Martha Moss. Margaret Willis. From Chesterton.
Hello, I am Margaret Willis. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live in Chesterton. I'm a Democrat. I grew up in an old school Republican household. And I say old school because my parents, both active in local Republican Party politics, strove for bipartisanship. My mom even worked her precinct as precinct committee person with the Democrat precinct committee person to try and make sure everybody in her neighborhood was registered to vote. They strove for bipartisanship, and they also instilled in their children ideals like fairness, honesty, responsibility to community, and each individual's right, inalienable right to representation. My late parents would cringe at the situation that has developed in our state and in our country. Frankly, they'd be appalled. My mother, a lifelong League of Women Voters member and officer, and also a historian with a master's degree from the great Indiana University, would tell me that the first and foremost cause of our revolution against Great Britain was the lack of representation. I think, to put it very bluntly, gerrymandering creates taxation without representation. It hurts the citizens, and it hurts both parties. And it hurts our communities, and it hurts our state. There have been many excellent suggestions made to you today, and I urge you to listen.
Martha Moss from Long Beach, representing Progressive Democrats of LaPorte County. On deck is Beryl Fitzpatrick. Beryl Fitzpatrick on deck. Is Martha Moss here? Oh, you're not going to speak? No. Beryl Fitzpatrick. On deck, Michelle Bartles from Michigan City.
Welcome. Thank you. Good afternoon. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today. I want to say especially thank you to all the Indiana State legislators and their supporters for their courage, advocacy, and pushback on the repressive voter legislation in the state of Indiana. And gerrymandering is a result of that. I stand before you a proud voter, a proud homeowner, a proud resident of Gary, Indiana, and a Hoosier. Although the state has not always welcomed me or recognized me, I implore you to do the right thing and create a fair and equal redistricting process where all Hoosiers will be represented. I proudly say my representatives and Senator Melton, Senator Randolph, Representative Smith talked about having maps, talked about having plans. The very act of gerrymandering is to exclude and teach people. If we really study the history of gerrymandering, it's to teach people like me oppressed and suppressed. I am appalled again that Indiana became one of those first states to employ and act suppression tactics and voter suppression legislation and law. 2021 is not Jim Crow. As a voter and a Black woman, I will not go back to the days of Jim Crow. Remember, I vote and I organize and encourage my fellow Hoosiers to vote. The knowledge that, again, because I disagree, doesn't mean that I'm not kind. But when I look at the history has not been kind. And recently, it hasn't been kind to Lake County, Indiana. I am the child of child of a teacher and a steel worker who's been active in the unions all of their lives that they were alive. What they said to me and taught me was that we have to raise our voices in order to be included. And we're here telling you that the history of redistricting in Indiana has not been fair. And we need for the process to at least begin to be fair, take a different road. Thank you, and I appreciate the time to speak to you this afternoon.
Michelle Barger, Commissioner Chair, one back Barbara Gilmer.
Hello. Thank you, Representative Wesco, for being here today, listening to us, all of you here at these tables. I didn't need to bring a stick because that horse has been talked to death up here today. If you haven't gotten the message, you never will. The G word, gerrymandering. We hear about it. I am sure that all the people in this room know what it really does to districts, but there are a lot of people that don't understand. They just know that evil gerrymandering. And we always have things in the newspaper to help us. I have a whole set of books called Dummies for, Computer, Dummies for Word, Dummies for this and that. Well, this is the dummies for people who don't understand gerrymandering, and I'm sure you've seen it. It was in the Washington Post. It's been over the years published many times, but it does show how boundaries can be controlled, even though not everyone understands how. I would like for you to do the redistricting without looking at where political parties are located. I mean, that would mean so much that you don't have a site plan out there as you're doing your planning. Terry Brindle was talking a little while ago, and he gave us some percentages about the breakdown between Republicans and Democrats here in Indiana. I looked at a different resource. Mine gave us 20% independent, but the other two figures were about the same. One of them was 37% Democrats, 42% Republicans. And then I looked at what we've got downstate representing us, and it was so far off balance with what we've got in our state that it's just so clear. I know that you probably didn't expect to hear the F word so many times in a 2-hour time slot, but the word fair has been mentioned by almost every single speaker that's been up here. What everyone has said before I came up here, please, we want fairness. We need it. We are desperate for it. Thank you.
Alder Gilmer from Valparaiso on that Chevron, Washington, D.C.
Thank you for providing me this opportunity to speak. My name is Barbara Domer. I'm a resident of Valparaiso, Indiana, and a member of the League of Women Voters in Porter County. Is this better? I'm speaking as a concerned Hoosier in support of the work of the Indiana Redistricting Commission. Hoosiers expect elected officials of all Hoosiers. We need to know our vote will count in electing representatives who represent all. Fair and transparent redistricting process. As I gained knowledge of the redistricting process in Indiana, I raised the following questions. Why is there a supermajority in the Indiana General Assembly made up of 73% Republicans when survey findings of registered voters in Indiana indicate only 43% identify as Republicans or leaning Republican. How is it possible that Democratic legislators do not need to be present in the Indiana General Assembly when bills are voted on? How does this structure serve the values and interests of all Hoosiers? Is this why many Hoosiers feel their vote doesn't count? Is this why many Hoosiers decide not to vote? Is this why Indiana ranks in the bottom 20% of states in voter turnout? Why do Hoosiers feel like legislators choose their voters rather than voters choose their legislators? Why are cities and towns split into multiple legislative districts? Is there a reason why a town with a population of 15,000 is split into 2 legislative districts? The answer I found is a redistricting process conducted behind closed doors and in need of reform. This lack of transparency leads to decreased accountability of legislators to all Hoosiers, creates polarization, erodes public trust, and creates Hoosiers who become unmotivated to exercise our democratic society's most precious right, the right to vote. On this day in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was signed into law, and to this day, we are still working on it here in Indiana. How can the Indiana General Assembly show Hoosiers that the redistricting process in 2021 will serve the values and interests of all Hoosiers? By incorporating the recommendations of the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission into the 2021 redistricting process. The commission canvassed the state to solicit the public's input on the principles and priorities we expect to be factored into the redistricting process. Their recommendations to the Indiana General Assembly are that in addition to the requirements of the U.S. Constitution, the Indiana Constitution, and the Voting Rights Act, Hoosiers expect the map to encourage political competition, respect communities of interest, without dividing voters for personal or political gain. Hoosiers expect the Indiana General Assembly to conduct redistricting in a fair and transparent manner, providing the public an opportunity to review the draft maps with time to provide feedback to the Indiana General Assembly so revisions can be made before the maps are voted on and presented to Governor Volker. I appeal to have the October deadline extended. There is no reason to rush this process. Let the voices of Hoosiers be heard. Let's strive to move Indiana up.
On deck is Elaine's coffee. Is Elaine here?
Yes, she is.
thought I'd have more time to get there when the other someone's talking. No apple cart. Step up. I studied speech making, writing, making films. So I'm her with a bottom mic. My name is Linda Anguiano. I was raised in Indiana. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington. And with my education, I was able to travel and have great jobs in Washington, D.C., and also in San Diego, California. And I was very active trying to influence the electorate on laws that were basically in two categories. One was women's rights, and the other was voters' rights. And I'm a little older than I look, sometimes people tell me, but we had a campaign, A Million More in '84, and that was focusing on people who traditionally didn't vote, focused on women and youth and people of color. And just so you know, I identify myself as a woman of color. I am half Mexican and I'm Polish. So I like to stick that Polish in. But there are a lot of Poles in Lake County, mostly in Whiting, but also in Hammond. Now I gotta stick to my notes. I got my timer here. After I lived in Washington, D.C. and San Diego, I thought, well, where do I want to live? I think I was 50. I said, I want to be near my family. I want to bring what I've learned. I want to bring these tips, these techniques, this education that I was blessed to have. Just a few hours short of my master's. And so I decided to come back to Hammond. And I ran for a precinct committee spot. And boy, oh boy, it was in Hammond. But not only is there this entrenchment among Republicans to save their seats, but in Hammond, I became an enemy because I ran against somebody in the precinct level who had been there for years and years. And they said, oh, you ran against her? I said, no, I ran for me. So I really believe in fairness and getting some fresh blood and who wants to serve. When Janine spoke, she didn't mention Janine Harrison. She didn't mention that we are a group of residents from 3 counties, and we are gathered around Progressive Democrats of America. And it's the Calumet Region branch. There's also, stand up. Some had to leave because of the storm. But we are, we have members in LaPorte County, Porter, and I guess you've heard by now there's a Lake County. And there are many members of our organization who, well, we don't really lobby, but we try and motivate organizations and individuals to do what we think is the right thing, the fair thing. And many of them could not be present because they work days or because they have obligations with their family. And for those who aren't working and who are available, like me, retired, it's an inconvenient location for Hammond residents, East Chicago residents, and Griffith residents, not to diminish the rest of the county, but those counties are a little more low income and they have less accessibility to reliable transportation, reliable cars. So it's very difficult, especially for East Chicago and Hammond residents, because there is no reliable public transportation. Now, the reason I think it's very important to speak, even though one of our members read a statement, is that we need the data
I identify as Latina, and I couldn't get the definitive statistics from the last census, but as of 2019, Hammond was approximately 40% Latino, 22% African American, 37% white, and it was approximately 1% Asian American, and approximately 1% other, which is probably Arabic. And we were very diverse. I was sad when I first came back after 40 years that Hammond had become more run down. It didn't have all that economic boost from the steel mill. My dad worked at the steel mill 38 years. My brother is now going on 45 years working at the steel mill. And we have a lot of challenges. And one of the ways that we can fix those challenges is to get the ear of somebody who cares, to get the ear from somebody who's willing to do something, even though it's not in their territory, their district, their part of the state. We now have a beautiful park that we're proud of, and it is being contaminated. So the EPA is in there working on it. There's other issues we would like to bring forward, but we need to have representation by people who actually care and will do something for us. So I went over my time, I'm so sorry. But thank you for having this, and thank you so much for having another hearing once you have some maps we can look at that are closer to our homes.
Lenny Coffey is right here.
I know. Can you hear me? I too am from the Progressive Democrats of America, Calumet region. I was going to read this prepared statement, but in the interest of brevity, I'll just hit some highlights. As you've heard over and over again today, Lake County should not be excluded from the district meetings. Right? If you live in East Chicago or Gary, it might not be very easy to get here. A second round of hearings must be held after we've actually seen some maps. The map should be drawn to encourage competitive elections. The map should be compact, with cities and counties divided into as few districts as possible. Communities of interest should be kept together. Transparency is also needed. And lastly, let me just leave you a little suggestion. We're in the 21st century here. Seems to me you could program a computer to draw the maps, paying attention to communities and so on, but leaving political parties out of it altogether. Thank you.
That was the final person who signed up to testify on behalf of myself and all of the commission. I want to thank you for your time. I especially want to thank those here at Ivy Tech. If you can give them a round of applause.